When I asked him if he needed me to pack for his Palm Springs business trip, he didn't look up from his screen. The cursor's blue light washed across his cheekbone, a glow more intimate than any touch I'd given him lately. The coffee machine hissed. The toast popped. The sun climbed over the low stucco wall and struck the kitchen glass so hard it scattered 1,000 tiny suns across the table. He typed something short and decisive, the way he closed most conversations with me now. Periods as hard as a door slam. "Don't worry about it," he said, voice even, eyes fixed forward. "I've got it." The phone lay face down beside the laptop like a closed eyelid. Another buzz, a tight mechanical shiver across the granite. I slid a plate toward him. Eggs, toast, the last of the strawberries, and pretended not to watch. Pretended not to count the seconds between vibrations. Pretended not to notice the trace of citrus and something sweeter, clinging to the collar of the blue shirt he'd hung on the chair last night. He said meeting. I heard avoiding. It had become our private translation table. He'd speak in corporate, I'd listen in silence. I wanted to ask him why we'd stopped being a we. But the kitchen was too bright for confessions. And our mornings were choreographed now. Two dancers who knew their marks and not each other. "Are you sure it's only 3 days?" I kept my tone light, measuring the shape of his answer rather than the words. "Don't worry. Don't be suspicious." He forked a corner of omelet, looked past me to the patio as if the bougainvillea might offer him backup. "I'll be in meetings from 7 to 7. You'd be bored." I smiled because it was easier for both of us when I smiled. The desert air pressed against the windows. Somewhere down the block a sprinkler ticked. At 7:30 a.m., our cul-de-sac was all dog walkers and cyclists, and people who'd never think about what a lie sounds like. It doesn't holler. It floats, plausible, under good lighting. His phone trembled again. The screen lit a thin edge, and reflex pulled my gaze to it. In that sliver of light, the preview banner slid by. Mark, Conference. Beside the name, a tiny heart bloomed and hid. It could have been an old emoji, a default in an imported contact, a mistake. It could have been anything, except nothing. I looked away as he placed his palm over the glass, the way you'd shade a flame. "You don't have to make me lunch," he added, already half standing, already somewhere else in his head. "I'll grab something between sessions." Between sessions. Between stories. Between us. "We still on for Friday night?" I asked. "If you're not too tired when you get back." "Late flight." He was at the sink now, rinsing the plate he'd barely used. "Don't wait up." Don't wait up. The kind of sentence that used to mean romance when we were first married. A late surprise. A kiss in the doorway. It sounded different now, like advice. He moved through the house with the efficiency he used to bring to our weekends. Shoes by the mat, suit jacket from the second hanger. Laptop into the leather briefcase that had its own monogram and its own smell. Clean, expensive, untouchable. I watched him the way I watch a painting I want to understand. Angles, shadows, the part the artist didn't mean to reveal. "Traffic's heavy on the 10, I said, glancing at my phone so he wouldn't think I'd memorized Google's habits. "You might want to leave early." "I'll manage." He sauntered down the hall toward the bedroom and came back with the suitcase. The same charcoal roller bag we bought in our second year, when we thought traveling would be our thing. He parked it by the door, clicked the handle down, and turned to kiss my cheek. I gave him the side of my face and the neutral smile that said we were both good people, just pointed in different directions. The door closed behind him with that soft hydraulic hush I'd grown to hate. In the sudden quiet, I could hear the air conditioner start and the pulse of my own breath. I wiped the counter, loaded the dishwasher, filled the dog's bowl. The rituals that make a house behave. And then, because habit pulled me like gravity, I went to collect his shirt from the back of the chair. When the fabric lifted, the smell rose. Floral, warm, expensive. Not mine. Not any of mine. I held the collar closer, then farther, as if the distance might change the truth. There are scents that are not on the hotel bill, but linger in the hearts of those at home for a long time. I folded the shirt with care, as if gentleness could prevent something from breaking. On the table, the mail lay in a small fan, a glossy catalog, a dentist reminder, a postcard ad for a desert art show. Beneath them, his wallet-sized card for the Mirage Palm Springs slipped out where he must have left it yesterday. The hotel logo in champagne foil, the kind of design meant to make you think you are the person who belongs there. I turned it over with a fingertip. Check-in time, member number, a tiny map with a star. It would have been easy to bury the card back under the catalog, to bury the unease under laundry and deadlines and the day's small chores. That is how most marriages survive the first storm. You let the rain pass and pretend your foundation is dry. I set the card beside my mug and watched the steam lift away until the coffee cooled. The toaster crumb tray stuck. I worked it loose with a butter knife. The dog nosed my ankle and I scratched the spot behind his ear we both liked. Out on the patio, 2 hummingbirds passed the feeder like secrets. I thought about the first time I admired his discipline. The way he structured his days. Color-coded calendars, travel itineraries with the corners pressed flat. There is a kind of neatness that is kindness. And he used to tell me which clients he liked and which he tolerated. He used to send me photos from hotel lobbies, potted palms, abstract art, a cocktail glass. We looked like people who had not yet learned that sometimes the story you are in is being written by someone else, in a font you can't read until the final chapter. Back in the kitchen, I opened my laptop. The login chime felt too cheerful. I typed the Mirage Palm Springs into the search bar and waited for the page to spill itself across my screen. Pools in a blue so saturated it felt engineered. Conference rooms with discreet art and glass water pitchers. Rooms with white duvets and views of palms marching like soldiers. I clicked through the tabs, the packages, the romance add-ons. Each image another breath I had to remember to take. I opened a new note and wrote what I knew. 3 days, Deluxe King, member card, reservation code, Mark. Conference with a heart. I didn't add perfume to the list. Some truths you don't reduce to bullets. The dog snored on the rug. A cloud marched in front of the sun and the kitchen dulled to ordinary light. I left the laptop open and looked at the empty chair across from mine. The way you look at a chair at an interrogation table, waiting to see who will sit down and who will blink. I want to be wrong, I thought. I want a funny story later about how I Googled the hotel because I was bored and found a rooftop bar we'll try together. I want a rational explanation for a heart icon. I want the world to be less obvious than this. I closed my eyes and saw his hands on the keyboard, quick, certain. The fingers that once smoothed my hair from my face. The hands that now belonged to his calendar first. I opened my eyes and the hotel homepage waited, glossy, and patient. I could almost hear the lobby music, feel the air that smells like money and eucalyptus and a certain kind of polished loneliness. I moved the cursor to the address bar and typed more slowly this time, like a person who knows she is leaving the dock. Lillian opens her laptop, Googles the Mirage Palm Springs. I want to know what is so special about that hotel that made my husband need 3 days. The lie doesn't start at the hotel. It starts in short. I open the family email, a shared inbox we created when we got the dog and needed to coordinate vet appointments and bills. Search. Conference. Palm Springs. Nixora. The screen returned nothing except a newsletter about ergonomic chairs. I tried the calendar he once shared with me, and then quietly abandoned. Color blocks, flight confirmations from months past, a dentist reminder, a golf thing in March. No schedule for this week. No agenda link. No dial-in. Meetings that live only in a man's mouth. Rain drummed harder, thickening the kitchen's quiet. My phone lit with a name I don't have to translate. "You sound like you're counting," Rachel said, without hello. She's an accountant. Numbers are a kind of therapy for her. Fork hits plate. That's a 3. 2, I said, and a half. I watched the drop that insisted on leaving a crooked trail down the glass, the way guilt refuses symmetry. "Do you have a minute?" "For you?" Even if the IRS called, she waited. I told her about the card, about the way his eyes stayed on the horizon of his screen while he talked to me about being busy. I left out the smell on his shirt. Some details are more real when they're private. She exhaled something between a sigh and a laugh. "A work trip without a meeting file to email. That's bullshit." I know. I scrolled my search history like it might confess. Maybe they booked last minute. Maybe it's internal. The word felt like a splinter. "Then there's still a trail," she said. "At least a calendar invite, a room block, a registration code. Look up the conference code by hotel and dates. Vendors brag. They put everything online, even when they shouldn't." Her voice took me somewhere I hadn't let myself revisit. 3 months ago, when he flew to Da Nang to visit a regional partner. He sent a single photograph of a sunrise and a caption that was practically a shrug. Jet lag. I baked a small cake for our anniversary. Nothing ornate. Candles in the drawer. He arrived 2 days later with duty-free chocolate and the clause that swallows apologies. Next time. When I teased him gently, he kissed my forehead and said he was building our future. I believed him, because that's how futures get built. On credit. I typed slower now, like care could turn up a different answer. Palm Springs Conference Medical Pharma June returned a glossy list of foundations and retreats, past dates and future dates. Nothing that mated with this week. I tried Nixora Palm Springs, Nixora Event California, Nixora Regional, and the search engine blinked blandly back at me. Nixora Labs had press releases about a pilot program in Phoenix, a trade show in Chicago next month, internal research awards announced last quarter. Palm Springs was a blank. "Okay," Rachel said, hearing my silence get heavier. "Check the company's event page, public-facing and internal, and the travel policy. If they have preferred hotels, they post them." I navigated to a page that had been designed to look friendly but say no, the way most corporate pages do. Travel, West Region. Preferred properties, LA, San Diego, Scottsdale, not Palm Springs. I clicked into the events calendar. Blue dots where something existed. White desert where this week should have had a dot. Nexora has no events in Palm Springs, I said aloud. And the room didn't change shape. I did. A little taller, a little thinner. Like grief had lifted water from me. At least not this week. Rachel didn't gloat. She's kind that way. There's still a world in which it's a client's event and not theirs, she offered, as accountants do, proposing small, generous reconciliations before you write off the loss. But there'd be emails. I checked our shared inbox. Nothing. The rain softened. Somewhere in the house, the air conditioner sighed with relief. What about his work email? Don't. Her tone sharpened. You don't need to breach anything. Let the facts walk to you through the front door. Save screenshots of what's public. Date stamp. If you need anything more later, a lawyer will bless it. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. The napkin's shadow looked like a map nobody admits to using. Do you ever notice, I said, how lies have a style guide? Short sentences, passive voice, no specifics. That's because specifics are taxable, she said, and we both laughed because we needed oxygen. Listen, keep your center. Don't tell him you're looking. Eat. Drink water. If it gets weird, call me. Define weird. You'll know it when you smell it. She paused. And Lil? If this were just a fling, he would have made sure you could see the meeting invite. Window dressing. Hiding nothing is a way of hiding everything. After we hung up, the house arranged itself back into its evening posture. The dog settled by the pantry. The kitchen light hummed. I started the dishwasher even though it wasn't full, because I wanted to hear something working the way it should. I opened a clean document and wrote what Rachel would want recorded. Date, time, search terms, results. The discipline steadied me. Facts are furniture. You can lean on them when the room spins. The rain thinned to a mist and the smell of wet dust rose. That desert perfume you can't buy. I walked down the hall to the guest room where we keep the extra suitcases. The ones that mean someday and visitors. And we travel together. The zipper teeth rasped under my fingers. In the interior pocket of my smaller bag, the one I use when I visit my mother in Santa Fe, I found what I didn't know I was reaching for. A folded receipt. Creamy paper that felt like it had cost more than it should. The logo again. The Mirage Palm Springs. Date stamped last month. Deluxe suite. 2 guests. Room service items with their little prices marching in a tidy column. The way sins like to be accounted for. Charcuterie. Sparkling water. Chocolate tart for 2. I stared at the number that totaled them, and then at the small print down at the bottom. Corporate account on file. There's a peculiar quiet that follows confirmation. It isn't shock. Shock is noisy. It's a coat of calm where the mind can finally put its hands down. I carried the receipt to the kitchen and flattened it with my palm next to the card. The countertop under them was cool, granite steady as a courtroom bench. If it's work, why do you need a king-size bed for 2? I heard my own voice say it in the room, and then again inside my head, lower, steadier. The sentence didn't ask for an answer. It hung in the yellow light like a painting you don't have to explain to recognize. I pulled my laptop closer and opened a map. Phoenix to Palm Springs, the blue line unfurling like a ribbon you only cut once. 3 hours. A drive I could make in silence. A drive I could make with the radio off so I could hear myself think. The cursor blinked patiently in the search bar, as if to say, "Your turn. I need to see who you're working with." They say when women are silent, it's not forgiveness. It's when they're driving to find the truth. Dawn rubs the sleep out of the desert, and the road unfurls like a vein toward whatever heart still beats ahead. I merge onto the 10 with the window cracked an inch, the wind tasting like warm pennies and dust. The suitcase sits obedient in the back, an accusation with wheels. The hotel card rides in the cup holder, pale and smug. I don't turn on music. I want to hear the car, the tires, the small sounds of a decision that won't be taken back. Billboards stagger by in bright squares, injury lawyers with capped teeth, a steakhouse promising endless prime, a church that says, "Forgive now," in letters so tall they look like a dare. The sun climbs, finds the smudge on my windshield I keep meaning to wipe, finds my hands at 10 and 2 like a student. Saguaros stand with their arms bent in old prayers. Between exits, heat hovers low, an animal crouched. Miles stack neatly, as if someone were accounting them. I think about how quiet our house felt last night, the way the dishwasher hummed to keep me company. I think about that receipt with its tidy columns, how decadence looks so clean when it's printed in 12-point font. I think about the first time he taught me to pack like a professional. Roll, don't fold. And the last time he told me it would be better if I stayed home. The space between those moments seems longer than any highway. I rehearse versions. Maybe there's a conference that never made it to a website. Maybe Mark, conference, is a joke with a friend named Mark who likes irony. Maybe the heart icon is a glitch from an old contact import. Maybe. Maybe is a word that drinks hope like water, but the truth has a taste too, metallic and stubborn, and it's in the back of my throat now. 2 years ago, we fought over nothing that meant everything. A Sunday afternoon, a heat advisory, a lemon tree dropping its leaves like burnt paper. I had asked a third question about his travel, a reasonable question, something about why a client dinner didn't show on his calendar. He looked at me as if I had tracked footprints over a map he'd drawn. "If you were smarter, you would understand what I did." He said it calmly, like the weather. I felt something shift then, a tile underfoot. I spent a week pretending I'd heard the sentence differently. I don't pretend anymore. The interstate begins its slow, muscular curves through low mountains. I think of his sentences, the ones that stop before they tell you anything. The ones that say, "Don't worry," and mean, "Don't look." I let the silence in the cabin stretch, elastic, then snap back. Trucks roar past like impatient gods. I keep the cruise control steady because control is a thin comfort, but it's something. At the first gas station past Quartzsite, I swing off the exit and pull up to a pump where sun has bleached the blue from the canopy. A man in a faded cap wipes squeegees with a towel, bored and kind in the way desert people learn. I fill the tank to the click and trail the pump handle back. The attendant glances up, just long enough to clock the out-of-state plates, and the way I stare at my own phone like it's going to testify. "You trying to get somewhere in a hurry?" he asks, friendly as a road sign. "Just on time," I say. My voice sounds normal. It surprises me every time it does. Inside, the air conditioning stacks itself like glass panes. I buy water and a pack of gum I don't want. At the counter, my hand hovers over the phone. I call him because that is what wives do when they want to be wrong. The line rings, then rings again, then finds that nowhere place where calls go when truth is on the other line. I watch the attendant watch me, a quick, professional sympathy. I hang up before the voicemail can yoke my name to his. I don't want to hear myself asking for a call back. Back in the car, I open the Find My Device app like a code I swore I'd never use. The map zooms from Earth to state to city, a gravity trick. A small dot shines where he is, Palm Springs. The icon floats near a cluster of green labeled with palms and blue labeled with water. I press the screen like pressing a bruise. The app asks if I want directions. I already have them. I take a breath that feels like a gear shift and close the phone. A tanker truck pulls out and drags a shadow over the hood. The attendant lifts a hand. I lift mine back. As I ease toward the on-ramp, I catch my eyes in the rear view. Steady, rimmed darker than usual. A woman who forgot to cry and remembered to drive. The mirror gives me back the line I'm trying to live inside. Not a victim. Not a detective, but someone who still believes that facts are kinder than lies. The road tilts west. Wind farms spin their pale arms, harvesting a sky I can't afford to admire. I think about the towns along this ribbon: Blythe, Desert Center. Places that mean stop because otherwise you don't. I think about the women in those towns. How they know how to look straight through men and weather and still see the day coming. A hawk holds its place above the median like a promise that hovering can be its own kind of forward. He once said travel made him feel efficient. He liked hotels where everything has a place. 2 glasses, 4 pillows, 1 folded note with a name not written in my hand. He liked loyalty programs that remember you even when your wife forgets to ask. I wonder which room they gave him this time. I wonder if he ordered the same tart for dessert. I wonder if the bed will look slept in like 2 people being careful not to leave a story behind. When the mountains soften into boulevards and landscaping, I roll the window farther down. The air warms my face. A hand that doesn't comfort as much as it tests. Bougainvillea again, this time brighter. This time bred by gardeners who know what wealth thinks nature should look like. I pass a row of mid-century houses, flat roofs and secret pools, and imagine all the vows that held and all the ones that unraveled behind those glass walls. Traffic thickens into a courteous crawl. I rehearse one last time, but quietly now. I am not here to make a scene. I am here to see. If the world is as ugly as I suspect, I will give it the dignity of being precise. I will take photos of what can be photographed, notes of what cannot. I will remember the way the air smelled, because even if perfume doesn't itemize on the bill, memory does. A light changes, and I glide through, the turn signal biting off its small metronome on the steering column. The steering wheel is warm where the sun has been, and I shift my grip to the shade. In the mirror, my eyes catch again, a little brighter now, a little harder. A woman, about to touch the truth. I say it to myself, not as a bravado, but as a compass heading. The car hums like agreement. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry. But if I'm right, you won't have the chance to lie again. The sentence stands up inside the cabin and takes the front seat. It looks out through the windshield with me. It points. The car turns onto Tequit's Canyon Boulevard. The sign appears. The Mirage Palm Springs, next exit. I thought my heart would pound when I saw you cheat, but when the door opened, it just went silent, like it was turned off. The lobby folded over itself in quiet wealth. Low armchairs and pale leather, a piano working through something soft and certain, citrus and bergamot spiraling up from a discreet diffuser. I adjusted the brim of the hat, let the borrowed glasses settle on the bridge of my nose, and watched my reflection glide across a brass column. Someone competent, someone ordinary. The kind of woman hotels are built to ignore. "Good morning," I told the receptionist with the name tag that said MATT, voice even, smile polite. "I'm here to drop something for my husband. Bradley Morrison. He's checked in, deluxe suite. I just need to leave my things in his room before his meetings." Matt's smile did the small hesitation people do when policy argues with hospitality. "We don't usually—" "I know." I slid the member card, the one with our shared last name embossed in neat capitals. "Same last name. He asked me to bring this." I let the hat tip forward, a gesture of hurry and unimportance. The piano bled into the smell of citrus. A couple crossed behind me, luggage whispering. I kept breathing as if oxygen were free. Matt typed. His brows resolved into relief. "Yes, Miss Morrison. He's in 237A. Pause. The flick of a glance up the hallway as if he could see through floors. "I can make a key that expires in 15 minutes just to let you in." "Perfect," I said, because it was. The keycard bit green in the elevator. Floors slid by with the sound of money being counted. At the second level, the hallway turned right, then right again, the air cooler and private. The carpet took my footsteps and didn't return them. When I reached 237, I waited a beat I couldn't justify, then slipped the card into the slot. A small light, the sigh of a mechanism, the door giving. The room had been lived in by a stranger who wore your skin. Your suitcase unzipped on the stand, your vest on the chair. The tie I bought you draped like a sleepwalker over the lamp. Near the window, 2 glasses of red, the surface still velvet, the temperature still warm. The bed held the tender ruins of carelessness, the kind that assumes someone else will smooth it away. From the bathroom, water threaded the air and then the sound of voices unspooled. Light, familiar, the bright vowels of people who aren't worried about consequence. I let the curtain at the window shade me and lifted my phone, thumb finding the camera without looking. The screen reflected my mouth, set and straighter than I'd known it could be. I adjusted the angle just as the shower hissed off. The door swung, steam walking into the room first. You came out in a robe that made you look generic and expensive. Behind you, 2 women also in robes, hair twisted up, laughing the laugh people practice with regulars. One of them crossed to the dresser, checked her reflection with the concentration of ritual. The other reached for a glass, sipped, set it down where a lipstick rim already bloomed. My phone marked the moment the way a clock does. February 14th. No, today. 10:47:13 a.m. GPS etched in the metadata, silence steady as any tripod. "Same time next month?" the darker-haired one asked, as if she were asking weather from a forecast. "Next time Vegas?" the other said, and you laughed, easier than I had heard in months. I kept the camera still. I kept everything still. When you turned slightly, I saw your profile the way I'd memorized it. Confident, amused, the tilt that says you are owed. I heard you say something about a client who never reads contracts, and felt a part of me step out of the frame, take notes. The moment you walked out, I knew our marriage was dead. and I was going to be the one writing the obituary. You moved around the bed, folding a corner with a habit I used to love. One woman picked up her dress from the chair, fabric falling like a decision. The other slid a bracelet over her wrist, snapped it shut. You checked your watch, though the room did not require time. I lowered the phone enough to catch the room as evidence more than theater. The two used glasses. The indentation on the duvet that mapped out a geometry of bodies. The robe belts tied with two different urgencies. I framed the room number in a mirror shot, caught the morning light dragging across the floor like a ruler. The timestamp burned precise in the corner. 10:48:02 a.m. The small red dot in the corner of the screen blinked with the manners of a metronome. My hands did not shake. When they drifted back toward the bathroom and the piping started again, I moved. 3 steps to the nightstand to photograph the room service slip. 3 to the dresser to angle the camera at the half-zipped toiletries bag, with a brand you only buy on trips like this. The corporate card suffix printed faintly at the bottom of the receipt, the kind of line finance departments love. The window showed a rectangle of palm and sky. I shot that too. People trust windows. I listened for footsteps in the hall and heard only the hotel's curated quiet. There is a skill to leaving that belongs to people who have practiced it. I didn't have practice, so I had to use will. I slipped the phone into my bag, wiped the condensation ring from the nightstand with the edge of a tissue, the kind courtesy supplies, so I wouldn't leave something that looked like what it was, a search. I closed the door as if someone were sleeping. The hallway swallowed me, without comment. The elevator arrived with a neutral sigh, carried me back past floors where other obituaries were being written in other rooms, by other people who thought they were the exception. In the lobby, the piano had found a new melody. Bergamot threaded the air like a lie that pays its bills on time. Matt looked up when I crossed the marble. I lifted the key card between 2 fingers, friendly, anonymous. "Thank you," I said, and slid it back across the desk. I found what I needed. He nodded, the way hotel staff nod when they agree to know nothing. Outside, the day felt overexposed. A woman in sunglasses arranged her scarf as if wind were a stylist. A bellman straightened a stack of newspapers no one would read. I walked to the far edge of the portico where the valet stand kept cars rotating like old planets, pulled my phone from my bag, and checked the video. Not because I doubted, but because proof has a temperature. The audio came through thin and bright. Laughter, your voice, the clink of glass. The red dot winked to black. The timestamp glowed. I saved it twice, once to the cloud, once to the drive inside the cloud, paranoia lifting its head and finding it was just prudence. I took a breath that didn't do what breaths are supposed to do. I felt the ordinary world continue. Traffic, sun, a conversation about dinner plans at the curb, and realized a decision had made room for me inside it. I turned toward the parking lot without looking back at the doors you would eventually pass through, carrying whatever version of yourself you preferred today. I'm not crying. I'm saving the evidence. I've never seen a strong woman cry in a hotel. They just drink water and note the exact time. The host sat me at a 2-top near the window, where the street lamps dropped coins of light onto the damp pavement. The room hummed with low talk and the scrape of cutlery, a soundtrack for people who are fine. I asked for water with lime. The glass came sweating. I wrote the hour in my notebook like it mattered to someone besides me. It did. Time is a witness. I opened the laptop and before I could think better of it, pressed play. The video bloomed in the small theater of the screen. Steam peeling off the bathroom door. Your laugh arriving before your face. 2 white robes drifting like captive clouds. There's a cruelty to pixels. They don't look away. I watched the red dot blink. Watched the timestamp march in a polite corner. 10:47:13 a.m. I froze the frame on the 2 glasses, on the lipstick rim that never belonged to me, on the robe belt with its careless knot. I wrote, Room 237, the Mirador, 10:47 to 10:48, 2 women, your voice, next time, Vegas? The waitress came by with a soft grin that had practice in it. You waiting on someone? No, I said, and the word felt clean. Just me. She nodded like she respected that. We do a good roasted chicken, easy to eat while you work. Water for now, I said. Maybe coffee later. I didn't trust taste. I didn't trust appetite. When the body refuses salt and sugar, it's saving power for thought. I dragged the minibar bill into view. The line items had that fake neatness Sin loves. Sparkling rosé, artisan chocolates, late-night fruit plate. I cross-referenced the timestamps with the video and felt the data click into place like a seatbelt. I took photos of the screen with my phone anyway. Backups for backups. Paranoia in my mouth like mint. Rachel's name popped up. Are you okay? I typed back, fine. Just learning how to be petrified. The 3 dots pulsed, then vanished. She knows when to stop. I opened the photo of the paper receipt from my suitcase, the one I'd smoothed flat on our kitchen counter, zoomed in to the bottom line. There it was again, almost shy. Corporate account on file. Corporate. The word didn't belong in a bed. I copied the reservation number into the Mirador site and pulled up the folio. Same number, same dates. Same suffix after the card. Asterisks hiding what they think privacy means. I wrote the suffix down, circled it twice. The waitress refilled my glass. You sure I can't get you something? Could I borrow a quiet corner? I asked, and smiled at my own audacity. She laughed, just a breath, and pointed to a banquette near a ficus. It's all yours. I moved there, back against the wall. Laptop a small stage. I opened Nixora's public travel policy with the dry satisfaction of someone who knows what she's hunting. Preferred vendors: Scottsdale, San Diego, LA, not Palm Springs. Employee conduct: entertainment expenses must be tied to documented client meetings. Receipts must list attendees. I highlighted the sentence. I copied it into my notes like a verdict. The video's audio crackled when I replayed it without the image. Just sound. Laughter with confidence in it. Glass clinks. Your voice softened by water and the belief that walls are loyal. You said a client's name I recognized, like a dropped password. I paused, wrote it down, tasted the metal again. Then I saw it. On the folio, a tiny field I'd overlooked. Company, Nexora Labs, baked into the template as casually as linen into a table. Whoever set up the account wanted the front desk to know who was paying. I took a long drink of water that didn't help. Calls with strangers do not scare me. In hotels, they're a sport. I dialed the Mirador's billing desk, requested verification like someone who organizes charity galas. I just need to confirm that the folio for Morrison Bradley, Deluxe Suite, was charged to the corporate card on file. Hold music. The same piano piece from the lobby, thinner over a phone line. A click. Yes, the voice returned, bright as a receipt printer. Corporate card ending in 47, per contract. Thank you, I said, and hung up before my voice could turn into something else. The line had the weight of a gavel. You didn't just betray me. You betrayed the company that supports you. And I know who wants to hear it. The sentence arrived fully dressed, ready to go out. I copied the Nexora Ethics Hotline number from their site, noted the hours, noted the words anonymous and retaliation policy. A system was there, waiting, as systems sometimes do, bored for real work. The restaurant's door swung, letting in a gust with the scent of wet asphalt. A table behind me laughed at a story about a bad date. Someone at the bar ordered a martini, dry like my sense of humor, and the bartender deadpanned, "So, wet then." I liked that the world could keep its timing even when mine had cracked. I opened a fresh draft email and typed Catherine Brennan, attorney at law, into the to-line. Not because I wanted drama, because drama without structure is noise, and I needed architecture. I had done the worst part already. I had seen. Now I needed someone who knew what to do with sight. I attached the video, the folio screenshot, a photo of the paper receipt, a PDF of Nexora's travel policy, my notes with times and room number, the audio clip where your future chewed through your present. I wrote the subject line like a case file. Evidence, RE, marital infidelity and corporate expense fraud, timestamped. Then I sat there with my fingers arched over the keys until they stopped trembling. My reflection in the laptop looked like a person who had aged a season in an afternoon. Good. Seasons know how to change. The waitress set a small plate beside me, 2 lemon cookies, sugared lightly. "On me," she said. "You look like you're doing taxes." "In a way," I said. "Reconciling." She left me to it, which is another kind of kindness. I broke a cookie, tasted lemon and butter and something I decided to call resolve. I checked the battery, 51%, and the cloud upload, complete. I checked the time, 7:12 p.m., and wrote it down because precision makes a spine. When the email body was still blank, I thought about the first time he told me his work was too complicated to explain. How I nodded like that made me loyal. I thought about the morning he left, and how sunlight looked expensive on the countertop. I thought about the laugh in that hotel room, the ease, the entitlement, the way you spoke as if the future had already consented. Then I started to type, not with fury, but with the calm that frightens liars. I typed the first email to Catherine Brennan, attorney at law. I have a story and evidence. If you have time, I want to tell it all. I don't need anyone to coax me. I need someone who knows how to bury a lie properly. Catherine Brennan's office was the kind of beautiful that doesn't apologize. Walnut built-ins, a rug in shades of law school navy, a window that framed Phoenix in sterile glass. Light slid across a stack of folders stamped corporate fraud, like a spotlight on a gallows. She rose, shook my hand once, and gestured to a chair that looked comfortable, but had a spine. "Start from the beginning," she said, and the temperature in the room decided to be honest. I told her about the lobby, bergamot, piano, the way wealth muffles sound. I told her about the keycard, the door to 237, the 2 glasses still warm, the laughter that traveled like perfume. I kept my voice steady. When I reached the place where the shower stopped and the three of you emerged, I let the nouns do most of the work. I put my phone on her desk like evidence on a tray. She did not flinch. "Do you have invoices, pictures, or bank statements?" she asked, pen stilled midair over a yellow legal pad, eyes on me, not the props. Yes. I opened the laptop and arranged the pieces. The video with its polite timestamp, the folio with the corporate suffix, the photo of the paper receipt, my notes with room number and minutes recorded like breaths. I included the screenshot of Nexora's travel policy, the sentence about documented attendees highlighted, as if I were telling a child how gravity behaves. She watched the video once, without sound, then again with it. When "Next Time Vegas" landed, she leaned back, and the smallest sound cracked out of her. Not a gasp, not delight. A dry acknowledgement that a puzzle had agreed to be solved. I don't just hear about adultery. I hear about money going to the wrong place. She turned the legal pad toward me and wrote 3 bullets in a hand that looked like it would never scribble. Company statements, internal emails, private accounts. I felt the room expand and sharpen at once. How much do I collect without crossing a line? My reflection in the window looked like someone who had made a vow. "As much as you can that is already yours," she said. "Shared devices, shared bills, shared clouds. You don't guess, you document. If something requires access you don't have, you don't touch it. You let me get it. We'll preserve chain of custody. Judges like custody." She began to outline a structure that made the future walk into the present. A petition for divorce resting on misconduct and dissipation of marital assets. A report to Nexora's security unit citing policy violations. A confidential proffer to the appropriate agency with evidence of embezzlement. She spoke as if laying out a map she carried everywhere. "It's a double approach," she said. "Family court for protection and division, corporate and criminal channels for accountability. They do not cannibalize each other. They coordinate." "And I?" I asked. My water glass left a circle on a coaster designed to prevent circles. "You live your life so tightly, he could use your calendar as a level," she said. "You do not confront him. You do not tip your hand. You do not rise to bait. You respond to messages like you always have, with small sentences. You go to dinner with friends if you usually do. You post exactly as much as you normally post. You do not become a different animal in the wild." There was something almost pastoral in the way she said it. Then her eyes clicked colder. "To win, you have to be so normal that he believes you don't know anything." I looked at the lines she'd written and felt the discipline attached to my bones. What if he suspects? He's careful, but arrogance is a cousin of panic. Then he will either pause, which gives us time, or he will hurry, which makes mistakes. She tapped the legal pad with the pen. "We will be ready for either." I told her about the old fight, the sentence that still lived underneath my skin. "If you were smarter, you would understand what I did." She didn't soften. She filed it. "That sentence will make a very good exhibit if he attempts to frame you as complicit," she said. "Abusers narrate incompetence to create cover. Judges have heard that music before." She asked for my timelines. I gave them to her down to the half hour. She asked where the devices were kept. I told her where the chargers slept at night and where the passwords liked to hide. She asked about finances. I described the joint accounts, the card ending in the same digits as the folio, the way the work trips had inflated our lifestyle like a tire that expects the road to stay smooth. She slid a retainer agreement across the desk, plain as a contract with the years. I read, I initialed, I signed. The pen felt heavier after. "Questions?" she asked. "If I do that, will he get arrested?" My voice did not shake. The question wore its shoes. "No, he will get himself arrested, if you give me enough rope." The sentence clicked into place, a latch closing. Men like your husband rely on their own momentum. We don't need to shove. We need to remove the guardrails and watch physics. The room was suddenly quiet enough to hear the HVAC move air. She outlined the next 48 hours with the calm of a pilot. I would gather what was cleanly mine: bank PDFs from the joint portal, copies of household credit card statements, photos of any physical invoices in shared files. She would contact Nixora's security director under privilege. They would start their own audit while I pretended to count stars. If necessary, she would bring in a forensic accountant and a private investigator. She said their names the way surgeons say instruments. "What about me at home?" I asked. "What do I do with my face?" "You practice it," she said. "You rehearse lightness. You offer him ordinary. When he gives you arrogance, you give him air. And when he texts you, you let him talk. The more he writes, the less we will have to paper slid into a Redwell." She angled the lamp so the light washed across the folder with my last name handwritten at the top. My name looked different up there, like it had traded places with itself. "From now on," she said, and there was finally something like mercy in her voice, "every text message is a weapon. There are doors that don't need keys. Just enough pain to open them, the old brass turned with a click that sounded like an exhale." His office still smelled faintly of cedar and toner, the perfume of a life that liked its paper stacked and its secrets alphabetized. Afternoon sun came in slanted, laying a ruler across the desk. I stood there a moment, listening for the house to disagree. It didn't. The laptop waited in the center, lid down like a closed eye. When I lifted it, the screen bloomed to the wallpaper he chose years ago. Monument Valley at golden hour, all certainty and horizon. No password prompt, only the time and the weather, as if the day itself had authorized me. I told myself this was a shared home, a shared device, a shared life that had been unshared by one person's decision. Then I opened mail. His inbox was what his voice had become: brisk subject lines, bullet points, no adjectives unless they build. I filtered for executive, for wellness, for solutions. The thread announced itself with the kind of professionalism that changes its clothes in a hallway. Jasmine, executive wellness. 14 months back. 26. 36. I scrolled to the beginning and watched the past organize itself. Bradley, good to hear from you. Same arrangement as last quarter. Send this month's bill to Nexora like last time. Attachments. PDF invoices that wore suits, consultation hours, client development, regional retention strategies. I opened one and found a line item titled On-Site Facilitation. You could hear the shower running through the euphemisms. I printed to PDF because paper felt too slow. I saved the files to a folder on my cloud with a name boring enough to sleep through, then duplicated the folder and shared it to a second account I rarely use. Metadata stamped today's date like a notary. I forwarded nothing. The emails would live here until someone with a badge told them they couldn't. Under sent, I found a letter from him to Jasmine. Need to be more careful on descriptions. Audit's gotten nosier. Her reply, cool as a hotel lobby. Don't worry. We can itemize in a way that reads internal. The tone made me imagine her in a robe, not because I needed theater, but because honesty is often dressed by context. A folder labeled Travel West held scans of credit card statements. Last year, the year before that. Month after month of hotels with water features and restaurants that plate their verbs. Line after line that tied entertainment to clients I now knew were as fictional as the adjectives. 3 years on the page. 3 years of what I swallowed being turned into something the reimbursement system digested. The bottom right drawer coughed after a tug, sticking like habit, then sliding open to a tidy ledger book, cream cover, elastic band. The kind of thing you buy when you want your crimes to be legible. Inside, columns in his exacting hand. Date, amount, memo. Transfers to a bank I didn't recognize. A recurring name, Veronica H., appearing like a chorus month after month, tidy as rent. I photographed each page edge to edge, the way archivists do, then laid the book back down exactly where it had slept. On the desktop, a spreadsheet titled Q3 Prospects. XLSX did not argue when I opened it. Tabs across the bottom. Travel, meals, entertainment, MISC. Cells with formulas that added things no one in accounting should ever have to add. In a note balloon he had left himself, I read, better to split bills across vendors, less noise. The arrogance in that sentence glowed faint blue. Printer whir. The office sighed. I gathered the prints, squared them into a clean stack, then thought better and scanned them instead. Paper can be burned. Clouds ask permission. I checked each file's properties like an anxious parent, date, time, size, before dragging them into the folder with the name that would bore a thief. In photos, I found screenshots he'd saved of hotel confirmations, including the one for the Mirador, deluxe suite, 3 nights. 2 guests, in a line that no one expected another pair of eyes to read. I saved it with the others, watched the progress bar creep like a measured pulse. 3 years. 3 years printed out in a few minutes, if you know where the print button lives. You said I didn't know anything about business. Now I can read your prices. $500 a night. I said it to the room, not for performance, but to hear what my voice does with numbers. It didn't tremble. It filed. A framed certificate on the wall praised him for excellence in client relations. I took a photo of that, too, because irony can be evidence when juries are human. Then I closed the laptop, reset the chair 2 inches to the left so it kissed the rug with the same shadow it had worn, and wiped my fingerprints from the brass drawer pull out of respect for future arguments. In the hallway mirror, I looked like a woman capable of passing for ordinary. I practiced the expression Catherine prescribed. Open, unhurried, faintly preoccupied by dinner. In the kitchen, I rinsed a glass and let the water run longer than necessary, so the pipes would forget. The dog wagged without suspicion. The house resumed its innocent arrangement. In the living room, my phone lit the way skin does when blood hurries. A text slid into view, bland as a receipt and sharper. She receives a text from Bradley. I'll be home early tonight. Get dinner ready. When a confident man walks into a house, he doesn't know whose movie he's in. I set the table the way he likes it. Linen napkins, the good plates, the bottle breathing just long enough to suggest generosity. Candles made the kitchen look softer than it is. When the door opened, his energy entered first. The satisfied hush of a man who believes the world is lucky to be arranged around him. "Trip was a success," he said, shrugging his jacket onto the chair as if it were a throne. "Closed 2 items. The rest are warm." "I'm glad." I poured wine, let the glass tilt toward him as if respect were liquid. "Did the company pay for all the expenses?" He grinned, took the bait for sport. "Of course." "They need me." "They do." I slid the roasted vegetables beside his plate. "I hope they don't count the double room wrong." The fork paused midair, only a heartbeat, but in candlelight a tremor is a bell. He set the fork down too carefully, then smiled, rehearsed. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing," I said, the way nothing means something when it's tidy. "Rooms get miskeyed all the time." He launched into updates, jargon like confetti, deliverables, margins, Q3. I nodded as if the words were weather. When his phone buzzed, he flipped it face down. I topped off his wine and asked about sauces. We ate. We were a portrait that would fool anyone who didn't know where the brushstrokes hide. After the dishes, I leaned into him the way habit had taught me, arms around his waist, chin at his shoulder. He likes his victories narrated back to him. He started doing exactly that, voice low, confident. My phone in my apron pocket listened the way I used to, quiet, loyal, complete. He took a call from Mark, moved to the window, spoke in abbreviations. I stepped closer to clear the plates from the sill, enough to catch the parts that mattered. Billing codes, entertainment under client dev, Vegas later, laughter meant to be overheard by no one. When he hung up, he found me where I'd been all night, pleasant, attentive, apparently simple. "Don't ask about that. I know you don't understand finance." "You're right. I'm learning." He kissed my forehead like a benediction bestowed on the obedient. I smiled back, the way a mirror does when it has already stored the room. Upstairs, the house exhaled into its nighttime posture. In the dark, blue light from my screen painted the sheets. I trimmed the beginning and end of the file, checked levels, listened for my own breath and deleted it. Then I attached it without ceremony, just another document behaving itself. Lillian sent the recording to Catherine with the note, "File 001.wav, tone, arrogance. I need someone who isn't afraid to get his hands dirty, wading into the clean water of the rich." Catherine made the introduction by email at dawn. 3 sentences, no adjectives, her reputation folded into the CC line. By 9, I was at a quiet coffee shop in Scottsdale where the light cut in clean rectangles, and the barista spelled names like affidavits. He arrived with the posture of a man who'd watched people lie for a living. Late 40s, trim, a scar by his jawline that looked more like punctuation than damage. "David Cross," he said, taking the chair opposite mine without performing charm. "Catherine says you have more than suspicion." I slid the laptop around and opened the folder I'd been curating like a case museum. The Mirador folio, the video with its polite timestamp, the PDFs named too carefully, screenshots of emails with Executive Wellness Solutions, the photo of the ledger where Veronica H. appeared month after tidy month. He didn't drink his coffee while he read. He made it wait. "This isn't just cheating," he said finally, tapping the trackpad to enlarge the ledger photo, then the corporate travel policy. "This is planning." He pulled a notebook from his jacket, flipped to a page already titled with today's date. "Veronica H.," he read. Same day every month. Same amounts or escalations? Escalations, I said. Quarterly spikes. Bonuses, he murmured. Or purchases. He looked up. We start with the flows we can lawfully confirm. Joint accounts, credit statements, any transfers to that bank. What's masked gets widened by subpoena later. Meanwhile, I want the metadata from those invoice PDFs. If their consulting bills were generated from a template, there's a fingerprint. I handed him a printout of the email where Jasmine promised itemizations that would read internal. He smiled without pleasure. Escort fronts love corporate vocab. It launders appetite. He opened his laptop, tethered to his own hotspot, and in 5 quiet minutes turned Veronica H. from a name into a partial silhouette. Las Vegas address, he said, tilting the screen so only I could see. Transfers into her account from multiple senders, some routed through wallets that smell like crypto. 2 incoming wires traced to Shell LLCS. We can tie to Nexora vendors. That's not romance money. That's payroll for a side business. My husband doesn't have a side business, I said, and heard how naive the sentence had been a month ago. He has a market, David said. He drew a simple diagram. Nexora, arrow. Bradley, arrow. Veronica, arrow. Third parties. You said you overheard a client name on the hotel audio. That same client shows up in Nexora's security bulletins I can scrape. Minor breach probes last quarter, nothing public. Pair your husband's travel with the dates of those probes and we get overlap. He clicked, cross-referencing with the calm of a surgeon. Columns lined up, cells turned the same color. He stopped, sat back, and let the room's small sounds return. Your husband isn't just cheating. He's selling company secrets. The sentence didn't feel like a twist so much as gravity finally asserting itself. The coffee smelled burned. Outside, a cyclist ghosted by the window, bright jersey, head down. What now? I asked. Now we document cleanly and let people with badges do their jobs. He closed his notebook. But first, we give him the stage he thinks is his. He tapped the Mirador video and the ledger with a single finger, as if ringing a bell. Let's have him go to Vegas again. We'll set a trap. I used to think justice needed guns. Catherine said, just email on time. 1 week later, the plan lived in calendars and quiet nouns. David sat at Catherine's conference table, evidence stacked like clean bricks. PDFs with metadata, screenshots of executive wellness, ledger photos with Veronica H. pulsing through months. The Mirador folio, the hotel video ready to be played by anyone who still believed in coincidence. Catherine looped Patricia Valdez in on a privileged call. Patricia's voice had the fatigue of someone who has seen good men become expensive problems. We'll audit from our side, Patricia said. Travel logs, access logs, vendor payments. If your timestamps line up, we can freeze corporate cards and cut system access mid-trip. Vegas provides cover, David added. He thinks it's routine. We won't chase him. We'll meet him there. Catherine drew a neat T on a legal pad. 2 lines, 2 courts. 2-pronged. Family and criminal. Lillian files for divorce the morning he lands. Nexora refers to federal partners with a package that reads like a closing argument. FBI waits until he takes possession. Data or money. No drama, just sequence. I nodded. I had practiced my stillness like a foreign language. At home, I rehearsed in the mirror until my face could say it without wobble. I wish you a smooth trip. The words sat cool on my tongue, a teaspoon of ice. In the living room that night, he buttoned his shirt with the ceremony of a man about to be applauded. "I'm going to Vegas. The company is sponsoring the conference." He watched me watching him, pleased with how easy it still was. "I figured," I said lightly. "It's the season." He kissed my temple, perfunctory, generous. The suitcase waited by the door like a co-conspirator. I stepped into him, arms around his waist, cheek against that expensive aftershave that wasn't mine, and lowered my voice to where only the truth hears itself. "Don't forget to get the receipt, so I can keep it as a souvenir." He smiled, not hearing the sentence for what it was. "You and your keepsakes." And outside, Dawn was still deciding. He rolled the suitcase to the car, waved, and drove into the kind of morning men mistake for permission. My phone vibrated in my palm before the street light at the corner had time to blink. As his car drove away from the house, Catherine texted, "Phase 1, activated." Not everyone who comes to Vegas seeks fortune. Some come to lose everything. From the pedestrian bridge, Vegas looked like a lie written in light. The fountains flung perfect arcs at the Bellagio, while slot machines hiccuped coins in a chorus that never learned to stop. I wore a blazer that could pass for a conference uniform, and glasses that said I belonged to no one. Inside, the carpet swallowed footsteps. The air smelled like air that had been taught to behave. Phase 1 had become geography. David sat 3 tables away at the bar, nursing water in a rocks glass so clear it read as gin. Agent Sarah Chen moved like a rumor, her team seated in the crowd with lanyards that matched the fake symposium we'd built out of fonts and a borrowed logo. On the security monitor in the back corridor, my husband arrived, a practiced silhouette with confidence tailored in. Veronica Hayes slid onto the stool beside him, all shimmer and precision. "Next time, Vegas," she murmured, as if completing a joke. He grinned, let his shoulder angle toward hers, and started talking about the Nixora documents, with the casual purr of a man who thinks paperwork loves him back. The camera caught the way his fingers tapped the envelope he'd brought. Confidence has a rhythm. David leaned closer to the monitor, narrating in low, precise phrases. "He's confirming custody. Watch his eyes when he says, 'client list.'" Agent Chen's voice came through my earpiece, steady, almost bored. "Stand by." We're green on the room. They moved to a private lounge dressed as a breakout suite, round table, ice bucket, the kind of lamp that makes secrets look flattering. Sarah entered with another agent, carrying a leather folder embossed with a made-up sponsor. "Non-disclosure agreement," she said brightly, placing the document in front of him. "Standard protections. We'll do copies for everyone Bradley didn't read. Men like him skim fate." He uncapped his pen, signed, and lifted the envelope as if we were all props in his film. On the monitor, I watched his mouth curve around a price. I felt my hands shake in the dark room where the feeds hummed. My eyes didn't. The door opened on cue. Agents flowed in, not storming so much as arriving, badges first, voices even. "Bradley Morrison, federal warrant." He blinked at the sentence, then at the wrist already in a cuff. Veronica's face emptied of color and then, strangely, of drama. She set her glass down as if she'd been waiting to. He turned toward the lens as they guided him up, looking for me the way men look for mirrors. I didn't step into the room. I stood by the monitor and said what needed saying, quiet as a scalpel. "I wanted you to see me one last time. Now you'll see me on the court monitor." They walked him past the chandelier that had watched 1,000 small tragedies and a few large ones. Outside, the fountains kicked again, oblivious and on time. David exhaled, the tiniest sound of a page turned. "Clean," he said. "Chain of custody intact." He took possession on camera. Agent Chen joined us at the monitors, hair immaculate, eyes not unkind. "Mrs. Morrison," she said, and I didn't correct the name because timing matters even in grammar. "We'll process him tonight." There's a lot to unwind. "Years," I said. She nodded, then checked her watch. The city kept blinking like an EKG that refuses to flatline. "Mrs. Carter, we need you to fly back to Phoenix tomorrow morning to sign your statement." "I've waited long enough for this day." They say, when men fall, they blame temptation. When women rise, they call it revenge. The conference room at Nexora had the sterile confidence of a surgical suite. Glass walls, a table that reflected faces like a second set of witnesses. An emergency badge hung from my neck. The projector hummed. Patricia Valdez stood at the head, not looking at me so much as through the timeline she had memorized. Catherine sat to my left, a tidy stack of color-tabbed folders in front of her. Agent Sarah Chen stood, hands folded, the kind of stillness that means decisions have already been made. Patricia began without theatrics. 3 years of embezzlement, 85,000 documented as entertainment, now recalculated near 130 with pattern analysis. Parallel transfers to a secondary account. And the larger issue? Confidential client data exported off-network. Slides advanced. Card statements, invoice templates from Executive Wellness Solutions, travel overlaps, access logs that did not care whether someone smiled when they typed. "The Bellagio intercept confirms intent," she said. "Possession on camera." Catherine's voice was cool enough to quiet the room another degree. "Our priority is protecting Miss Carter from reputational spillover. She is the reporting spouse and a cooperating witness. We ask that all internal communications refer to this as an internal fraud matter without detail about marital conduct. The family filing goes in tomorrow at 9. Sarah clicked a remote. The screen replaced spreadsheets with a still frame of Bradley signing the fake NDA, pen mid-stroke, jaw cocked in that angle he saves for mirrors. The playback rolled for 8 seconds, signature, envelope, a number spoken aloud like a password, and stopped on his satisfied face. I used to think he was smart. Now I see he just smiles when the camera is on. No one corrected me. Sarah nodded once, as if cataloging the sentence as evidence of state of mind. White-collar charges, wire fraud, theft of trade secrets. With the multipliers, maybe 15 years. The door opened and a junior agent slipped in a sealed envelope. Sarah skimmed, then raised her eyes. Update. Veronica Hayes has provided a proffer. She states she was threatened, financially, physically implied, if she broke the arrangement. She's cooperating in full. Patricia exhaled in a way I'd never heard from her. Less fatigue, more relief. That corroborates the vendor anomalies, she said, already annotating the slide in her head. Catherine wrote a single word on her pad, coercion, and underlined it once, not for emphasis but for order. The director of Nexora cleared his throat. "We'll issue a statement to staff about integrity and ongoing cooperation," he said, choosing nouns that kept blood off the carpet. "Miss Carter, you should know the board has authorized assistance with your personal security and counseling if desired. I desire outcomes, I said, and no one argued. When the meeting broke, Catherine touched my sleeve and steered me to the window, where Phoenix looked workable under flat noon light. He will find a way to make a deal. But you have the right to decide. I want him to hear the verdict, not to negotiate. The courtroom is not a place for shouting. It is a place where the truth is spoken in the voice of a lawyer. Nevada's morning came through the high windows in a square, clean, and indifferent. The wood smelled faintly of polish. The benches carried the quiet weight of other people's endings. Catherine's legal pad sat before her like a metronome, each tab a measured breath. Sarah Chen nodded once across the aisle, expression set to factual. I folded my hands and studied the grain in the table, as if it might map a way out of habit. They brought Bradley in with the restraint that makes dignity optional. Head down, jaw tight. The tie I'd chosen for him years ago replaced by county issue. He did not look at me. The room read his posture as strategy. I read it as absence. Catherine's shoulder brushed mine. Small contact, large steadiness. Veronica's heels sounded like punctuation on the aisle runner. On the stand, she didn't dress the truth. She let it wear its own clothes. He used me to transfer data, she said, voice flatter than shame. Routing files through accounts he controlled. He said it was harmless. Everyone did it. The jurors watched her with a concentration that made time hushed. Catherine's cross was merciless, only to the evasions. When the answers were clear, she let them stand alone. Then the screen woke, and there we were again. Palm Springs distilled to a rectangle. Steam, laughter. The casual choreography of three people who believed in soundproofing. The timestamp sat in the corner, polite as ever. A throat cleared somewhere in the gallery, then stilled. Catherine walked the foundation like a surveyor. Room number, folio, policy, chain of custody. The judge nodded only when necessary. When they called me, the oath felt like a palate cleanser. I kept my eyes on the seal behind the bench. I don't want revenge. I want to know who I trusted wrongly. My voice didn't tremble. It filed. I described the morning light in our kitchen, the card on the counter, the drive through the desert where silence did the arithmetic for me. I did not say his name as if it belonged to me anymore. Catherine asked what changed after Palm Springs. The category, I said, from marriage to math. The prosecutor asked whether I feared retaliation. I feared forgetting, I answered. That's why I wrote everything down. Closing arguments moved like weather fronts, measured pressure, no thunder. The jury left with their instructions. The clock did its small work. When they returned, the room rose with the practiced choreography of consequence. The judge's voice was a scalpel. The court announced Bradley Morrison was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. He looked up then, finally, searching the room for the version of himself that still existed. I met his eyes and felt nothing that asked to be named. The mission is over, Bradley. The words landed, small and accurate, like a date on a ledger. The bailiff touched his elbow, and the room exhaled. Outside, sun made a bright geometry on the courthouse steps. Microphones waited with metal patience. Catherine collected the exhibits with a librarian's care. Sarah shook my hand once, and Veronica passed without meeting my eyes, leaving only the sound of heels and a life turning. At the foot of the stairs, a woman with a press badge and a clear voice approached. Not predatory so much as precise. After court, journalist Rebecca Torres approached her. I want to tell your story, okay? I don't need to be famous. But if my story helps a woman wake up, I'll tell it. The new apartment has the echo of a place still learning my name. Bare walls, a rug rolled out like a welcome, a plant that pretends this is easy. Afternoon light slips through the blinds and lays careful ladders on the floor. Rebecca Torres arrives with a messenger bag and the kind of smile professionals wear when they're here to carry weight without dropping it. She sets a small recorder on the coffee table, as if placing a candle. "Why don't you stay silent like everyone else?" she asks, not accusing, just mapping. Because silence is also a way to hide crimes. I pour tea for both of us, the ritual older than this room. I kept quiet long enough. Quiet was the mask the truth used. She nods, glances at the windows, at the spare bookshelf already half claimed by binders, then back to me. "Off the record. Are you scared?" "I was," I say. Then fear turned into work. And work doesn't tremble. We talk about the court, about the white light and the wooden tables, how justice speaks in documents, not thunder. She asks if I meant it when I said I wanted him to see me on the court screen. I meant that the version of me he understood had to end, I say. On a screen, endings are neat. She flips her notebook to a clean page. Title ideas? I look at the recorder, at the red eye watching us both. Call it During Husband's Work Trip. That's where it all began. Rebecca smiles like an editor hearing the line that will make the page breathe. She clicks the recorder on. The red dot glows. My voice fills the small room without apology. I tell it straight. The card on the counter. The drive through the desert where the billboards were louder than my doubt. The hotel room that smelled like citrus and lies. I speak about Catherine's office, cold, precise, and David's diagrams that made the money talk. I mention Patricia's slides, Sarah's even tone, and the way the courtroom felt like a clock finally striking the hour it had been threatening all day. "What did you learn?" Rebecca asks. "That you can leave a marriage and still keep your integrity," I say. That love is not proof. That paperwork is oxygen. That normalcy is a costume predators rely on. She is quiet for a moment, then leans forward. "This story will spread far and wide. He will miss you, not for love, but for justice." I sit with that, not savoring it, not resisting it. The kettle pops softly as it cools. Out in the courtyard, a bike passes, a chain murmuring over gears. I realize my hands have been still this entire time. When she powers the recorder down, the room doesn't feel emptier. It feels arranged. She packs up, promises to send proofs, and pauses at the door. "You know it will make some people angry. Truth has a way of moving furniture," I say. "They'll learn to walk around it." When she's gone, the apartment resumes its starter hush, the kind that invites new routines. I open the laptop on the little table by the window, send Catherine a message with nothing but a heart and a check mark, my private index for done. I water the plant. I open a new document and write down a sentence I don't want to forget. I am not the worst thing someone did to me. I'm halfway through assembling a bookshelf when the laptop pings. A subject line flags itself bright. Rebecca's post is live. I click. My kitchen becomes a small newsroom. Photo of me at the window. A headline that carries my title. Paragraphs that walk briskly and refuse melodrama. The comments thread scrolls. Women, men, people who saw pieces of themselves pinned and freed. I close my eyes and let relief knock once. Enter. Sit down. Then another ping. The analytics graph spikes like a heartbeat that has found its reason. I read the alert twice to make sure numbers can, in fact, say what they're saying. Email notification. Rebecca's post reached 1 million views in 24 hours. Lillian read the comment. Thank you for teaching me not to close my eyes. I used to think the end was when justice came. Turns out, it was just when we started over. The courthouse doors breathed me back into Arizona light, that dry, honest brightness that doesn't pretend to be gentle. I slipped behind the wheel and let the engine find its hum. The same route unfurled, the 10 easing west, then shouldering the desert like an old friend. This was the road where suspicion once sat in my passenger seat, counting mile markers. Now the seat was empty and useful. The radio found a station without my help. A chorus rose warm and improbable. You'll never walk alone. I let it play, low, the way you let a kind stranger speak while you watch the horizon. The desert offered its old vocabulary, saguaros in dignified poses, billboards making promises to the lonely, air that tasted faintly of sunburned stone. I passed the gas station where the attendant had clocked my GPS stare, and the place where I had almost turned back. The phone rested face up in the cup holder, no longer a judge. Find My device had taught me how to follow a dot. The last few months had taught me something more disorienting and more accurate. Find myself. At a rest stop glazed with afternoon heat, I pulled in to stretch. A man by the vending machines lifted a hand, then stepped closer with the tact of someone who knows people for a living. Lillian Carter? He asked, voice careful. David Harrison. Nixora asked me to reach out about a fraud prevention project. He smiled, not wide, just real. I heard about you. I admire your calmness. I laughed because it felt earned. I just learned to stand still in the storm. We talked 10 minutes that held more future than most hours. About training modules and case studies that don't flinch. About paying attention before the audit. About turning personal wreckage into guardrails for other people's bridges. He gave me a card that didn't try too hard. When we said goodbye, it wasn't a grand overture. It was two professionals agreeing that clarity is a useful tool. Back on the road, I let the windows down for a mile and took the desert straight, unfiltered. The sun fell toward its gentler angle, polishing everything to a pale gold. I pulled onto a turnout and killed the engine. The quiet arrived like a decision. Heat rose in waves off the gravel. A hawk hung in the kind of balance that looks like faith. He taught me to doubt. Justice taught me to believe again, in myself. I said it to the air, to the car, to the small, brave animal of my heart that had learned the difference between vigilance and fear. It didn't echo. It didn't need to. My phone buzzed once. A banner slid across the screen with the casualness of come-and-go news. Rebecca. Netflix wants to buy the copyright of the story. I pictured a room where people would argue about casting and angles, and I felt neither flattered nor offended. Stories have to leave the house to live. Mine already had. I stepped out and stood beside the car, sunlight climbing the metal and then my skin. The last of the day turned the distant hills to paper lanterns. I wasn't interested in happy endings. I was interested in honest continuations. Forgiveness, it turned out, was not a pardon for what he did. It was a permission slip for me to go. I looked up at the sky and smiled. Let's see.